Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School. Back at the Pathfinder Outdoor Kitchen here at the Pathfinder School. What we're going to do today is we're going to make a cottage pie, which is different than a shepherd's pie. We'll talk about that in the video. And we're going to modify it just a little bit to make it easier to put the ingredients together. And we're going to make part of it in a camp environment, like a base camp environment here. And then we're going to package that up so that we can refrigerate it to take it to a campfire to finalize that cottage pie as a campfire meal. Stay with me and we'll get started, guys. Okay, quick, let's talk about some ingredients. We're gonna need some hamburger. I've just got a small package of hamburger from Piggly Wiggly here. We're gonna need some all-purpose flour for making our roux and our gravy. Some Worcestershire sauce. The seasoning that I chose was Italian seasoning, and the reason for that is so that I didn't have to have lots of different individual seasonings. There's a couple things like oregano in Italian seasoning that's not typical to this recipe, but things like rosemary and thyme that are in this are typical to this recipe. So it's not gonna make that much of a difference, and it just makes it easier to prepare. I've got a small can of tomato paste here. We're only gonna use a portion of that. And then I have a package of 4 cheese mashed potatoes here, Idahoan, just add water. Typically you'd use Parmesan cheese and potatoes, but because we're going to carry this away and make it in camp, it's very simple just to get a 4 cheese potato and call it good. So what we'll do is we'll prepare all of these things ahead of time so that we can just put the finished mixture. One thing I forgot, sorry, we're gonna need our dried vegetables. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. So we're gonna need a good, probably 2 tablespoons or a tablespoon of that dried vegetables in this mix for one of those small pans. We'll talk about that and discuss it as we go. But we're going to make this stuff ahead of time so that it can be put into a Ziploc bag and chilled in your refrigerator at home, your cooler at camp, your refrigerator at camp if you're using an ice co, and then carried off into the woods for an overnight and cooked on a campfire. So what we'll do is we'll make the pre-ingredients ahead of time. We'll get them packaged up. Then we'll take the 2 bags that we have left, which will be our main bag of our meat and gravy and our Idahoan potatoes, and we'll cook them on a campfire in a bush pot. We'll talk about that as well as we go. Let's get some hamburger on first right here at the Pathfinder kitchen. All right, step 1 is to get some burger in this Pathfinder skillet, brown the burger and create some grease. We got a 2-fold reason for doing this. Number 1 is to pre-cook the burger. Number 2 is to build up some grease so we can make some gravy to thicken this whole thing up for our shepherd's pie. Now at the same time we're browning this burger, I've got about 1/4 cup of water here. And I'm gonna take some of these dried vegetables and I'm going to start to rehydrate them a little bit by putting a good tablespoon into this cup, and I think I'm actually going to use about 1 tablespoon 3/4. And we're going to let those start to hydrate. Now, if you're cooking a small amount like I am here for that small loaf pan, you may not get the amount of grease that you really want. You can always add a little bit of beef tallow to that, just to give yourself a little bit more grease in there to create that gravy with. We'll go ahead and melt a little bit of beef tallow in there. You wouldn't want to mix lard really with beef, as lard is pork. So we're going to use beef tallow with this. Okay guys, so I'm sitting here editing the video right now to get ready to load it to YouTube, and I noticed that I missed a segment in there. Somehow I missed a clip, didn't turn the camera on or something, where I added a tablespoon of flour to that meat before I added anything else to it with that grease to create that roux, to kind of make that meat start to thicken up and make a paste. And that's an important step that you don't want to forget. So I want to cover it in this video. Okay, now we're going to reduce this heat just a little bit. Oh, turned it down too much and lost my flame altogether. Tricky, tricky. All right. Now, next thing we're going to add in here is going to be the seasoning. Again, we talked about substituting this Italian style seasoning. We're going to put about, I don't know, 1/2 tablespoon in here. we can get a half a tablespoon to come out into this thing. We're spilling some of it over anyway, so I'm not real worried about it. Okay, let's kind of pull that off the heat for just a second here. And have a look at our vegetables and how they're rehydrating. They're getting there. We're going to heat them up just a little bit to get them hydrating a little bit faster, because we're going to add those pretty shortly. Okay, before we put our vegetables in here, we're going to throw a little Worcestershire sauce in that meat. Now, this Worcestershire sauce isn't really the recipe per se as far as how much. I'm just putting in what I think is right. Now I'm getting ready to put some mixed vegetables in here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to strain these vegetables real quick. Strain the water off to the side here. All right, so now I'm going to pour these mixed vegetables in here. Get them all scraped out of the cup here. Get them strained off. And we're going to mix those in. And they're not totally rehydrated yet. That's okay, because they will while they're cooking. We've got a little liquid in there. It's okay. All right, so those vegetables will hydrate even more while this is simmering. The next thing we need to do is we need to add a little bit of tomato paste. And again, I'm not really measuring, but tablespoon-ish of tomato paste in there, and mix that up. You can see I'm using tablespoons or tablespoon and a half-ish of most of these ingredients. And we just want to cook that up till it's getting thick. Okay, we just need to let this cool down now so we can put it in a Ziploc bag for refrigeration. It's never good to put hot meat into a refrigerator. Let this cool down to room temperature before you do that. And we'll scoop it up, put it in a Ziploc bag, get her in the fridge, and we'll be ready to take it to a campfire. All right, so one thing we can do while we're letting this cool down to room temperature is we can prep this loaf pan that we're going to take with us into the woods. Obviously, we don't want to take it like this. It's going to get crushed. So we're going to crush it ahead of time. And all we're going to do is just fold the sides in just like this into basically a canoe. And then fold those two sides down on top of each other. Make sure you're going to get it good and pointed there before you do that. Almost like a Christmas package that you're folding over. And you can make that pretty flat and put that right in your bag. Now, as you can see, that Pathfinder grill rack fits right over top of the footprint of that fire we built with those end cuts. And I really am a fan of this end cut oak. Get that stuff from a sawmill. If you're camping in a hunting camp or something like that, or group camp or family camping, it sure beats buying regular firewood, because you can bust it off in small chunks. It lights easy and it burns and it holds coal for a long time, because most of the time it'll be hardwood that you're getting. And you can buy it by the pickup truck load, fairly cheap. Okay, so in the real world, we would just scoop this out at room temperature, shove it into a Ziploc bag, and put it in our refrigerator or a freezer until we're ready to go on our camp. For today, we're just going to go ahead and take our folded container here, our loaf pan, unfold it, kind of straighten it out with our hands as best we can. Doesn't have to be perfect anyway. It's just a piece of aluminum foil we're using to cook in to contain our food. And so the first thing we would do is we would cook our potatoes. So we'll cook our potatoes over this coal fire real quick. So I'll go ahead and scoop this into the loaf pan. Probably not going to use quite all of it. We'll see. Get it in there nice and tight. Maybe we will use it all. And those juices are what we want in there. So hang on to those. And you want to fill this thing probably half full because the other half is going to be potatoes. So get that thing good and stuffed half full. This is not like your meatloaf where you have to be careful not to compress it too much. That's okay with this shepherd's pie. You've already cooked the ingredients and stuff. You're not going to make it any tougher by compressing it. We've got just a little bit left over. We'll save that for Zahn. We'll get our potatoes cooking over the fire. All right, so we've got our cup on the fire. We're going to cook our mashed potatoes in a cup in the essence of not bringing a whole lot of stuff to the woods. We cook the mashed potatoes in this, and then we have the bush pot that avoids carrying other things like the skillet and those type peripheral items. So we're trying to stay as minimal as we can, but get what we need done as well and have a good meal. Okay, so we just took those mashed potatoes and we spread them right over the top of the meat that we had in that loaf pan. And now we've put that thing on low heat. We're going to cook it for about 20, 25 minutes just to get everything baked well. And then we'll have some cottage pie. Okay, so here's our finished cottage pie just out of the pot here, sitting on the cooling rack, ready for us to give it a shot. Well, you know what they say, there's nothing left but the taste test, so let's get this dude over here and get some out. I'm gonna cut down through here a little bit. Lift a chunk of this out, put it on the plate. Look at that, man, oh man. Exactly what we're looking for, consistency-wise. Looks real good, real good. Pretty hot, I'm sure. Oh man, holy crap, that's good. Wow, that's really good. Wow. I'm not sure I'm going to stop eating this shoot at the end of the video. My gosh. Wow. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Gotta stop for a minute. Holy cow, it's good. Guys, listen. A couple things just in case I didn't quite get it covered in footage in the video. I was going to cook it in the large, or in the 64-ounce bush pot. And then I thought, you know what? I used that coffee press, I used that French press container, the 64-ounce growler cup, to make coffee in. So, and it fits perfect for one of these loaf pans. So why not just use that? We're all about minimalism. We're trying to carry the least amount of stuff we need to carry in the woods. And if we can fold up one of those pans, put it in our kit, we've got that 48-ounce cup already. As far as our coffee kit goes, things like that, then we've gotten a water bottle and a cup. We can cook a killer meal out there that we prepare ahead of time, take with us when we go, and it's ready when we're ready to eat. So I appreciate you guys joining for this video today on cottage pie. And again, the difference between cottage pie and shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is generally made with lamb. Cottage pie is made with beef. We made it with beef today, so it's a cottage pie. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business. All our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks. I can't wait to get to eat this thing again. Bam. Mm-mm.